We are here because The Who are announcing a North American tour performing Quadrophenia plus Who classics. This marks their first North American tour dates in 4 years. 37 dates across the whole of the States, and I'm pleased to welcome Roger Daltrey and Townshend to the studio answering your questions.
What I like about our period particularly, though, that we were very lucky with, is that the mod culture was such a clean style. It had it was sharp.
Not going out of date, is it?
No, it's sharp, and I really love that. The same thing with the Teds. That in its own way was sharp. Rockers were a mess, hippies were a mess, been a mess ever since, but the mods are still sharp.
How was it kind of revisiting the record and really looking at it closely?
I can tell you that my part in it was the writing about the record and going back through the tapes was quite enjoyable. I found doing the documentary quite difficult, and I'm pleased at the positive response to it. I haven't had the courage to look at it myself. I'm really pleased at the positive response to it. I really am.
You haven't seen it either?
No. You get to a certain age, and the last thing you want to do is kind of look at yourself looking at 105, going on about being 15. Funnily enough, the only bit of the Quadrophenia experience that I can remember was doing it at Madison Square Garden, which was a really chaotic experience. That we had Phil Daniels narrating. It was just chaos, but it was wonderful chaos, but it was chaos. And I remember that
chaos the British do best.
But the Who were a very, very young band. We were very young when we started. In 1963, 64, playing to those audiences, we were just kids. And our audience, some of them were even younger.
So we drive each other. Pete drives me, and I hope I drive him. And that's what it's about. It's very rarely dull. And if you can get that doing your job, you're lucky.
We miss the other two guys very much. We were lucky enough, Roger and I, to be able to tour, from about 2000 onwards for a while with John Entwistle, and so we had that reinvention back with us, with Zach Starkey on the drums. And what was interesting about that is that there was this constant drive, in a sense, to kind of recreate the old Who. It's a bit like Springsteen going out with the original members of the E Street Band. You want to hear that kind of sound. When John Entwistle died, so we then didn't have Keith Moon and we didn't have John Entwistle, somehow what actually happened, for me anyway, I don't know about for Roger, there was a sense of being liberated, being able to I don't want to make a good thing out of two deaths, but sometimes that's just what happens. I'm not saying that what I do now is better than what I did then, but I do feel freer to explore what I did as a musician back then, but also to find new things. And I think one of the first things that happened was I started to listen to this guy, to Roger. I don't know that I'd done it that much.
Can we expect some stuff we haven't heard before, the classics?
You won't get them all. That'd be a 5-hour show.
Do you think the themes that made you want to write Quadrophenia are still relevant in the same way?
I think, I think the situation is sharpened by that. I think, if you're one of those people that gets left out of the loop somehow, if you can't do Twitter, God, you must feel pretty lonely. You know what I mean? That's really what it's about. This is about a young man who doesn't fit in, that's all. We've been trying to find something we could do together, Roger and I, for a while. We've gone off in slightly different directions. Roger's been working with a new band. I've been developing new music and writing a book about my life. So we've really struggled to find something to do this time, and so in a sense, Quadrophenia for us this time was something that we both felt that we could get together on and look at again, because the last time we did it was in 1997. So that's the reason for now. It's just we've been anxious to work together, and before we drop dead.